Have you ever heard of a dolphin adopting a real whale? No? Or a cat that became a mother to 5 hedgehogs? Also no? Then you've missed out on some amazing stories. In this video, I'll share the most incredible tales of animals caring for other species. Be sure to watch the video in its entirety, as the most touching story is at the end. Enjoy. Unusual whale calves. Let me start with the most unusual story. Recently, scientists reported an astonishing event in the animal world. A female dolphin unexpectedly adopted a calf of a different species, a whale calf. This unusual family was first observed by researchers in 2014 when a female bottlenose dolphin was seen swimming with 2 young ones. In nature, bottlenose dolphins usually give birth to only 1 calf, and the mother is fully focused on its upbringing and protection. However, in this case, another dolphin of a completely different species, a false killer whale, was swimming alongside the female and her own calf. False killer whales are closer to orcas or pilot whales than to bottlenose dolphins, and their lifestyle is generally quite different from that of bottlenose dolphins. Over several years, scientists carefully observed this unusual family living off the coast of French Polynesia. During this time, the false killer whale began to adapt to the behavior of bottlenose dolphins, picking up their habits. Along with its adoptive mother and brother, it often leaped out of the water and interacted with other dolphins. This behavior is completely atypical for false killer whales, which prefer deep waters and rarely encounter humans, making them less studied. The bottlenose dolphin's own calf left its mother after about a year and a half, as is typical for dolphins. However, the adopted dolphin stayed with the female for 3 years, which is quite unusual. Scientists speculate that this case might have occurred due to the female bottlenose dolphin's inexperience. Although bottlenose dolphins are one of the most common and studied dolphin species, there had previously been no recorded instances of them adopting calves of other species. An extraordinary family, isn't it? Feuding Family. The next story is also quite remarkable, as it involves 2 feuding species. On a farm in County Offaly, Ireland, an unprecedented situation occurred that challenges conventional notions about relationships between cats and birds. Normally, cats, being predators, seize any opportunity to catch feathered prey. However, in this case, things went differently. A cat named Della, living on the farm, displayed unexpected care and affection towards ducklings. During one of her litters, which lasted about an hour, Della came across 3 ducklings that had just hatched. Instead of attacking them, as one would expect from a predator, Della showed maternal instinct. She carefully carried the ducklings to her box, where her own newborn kittens were already, and began to groom them lovingly, accepting them as her own. The farm owners were astonished by their pet's behavior. They believe this happened due to high hormone levels observed in cats during childbirth. It seems that maternal instincts prevailed over her natural predatory instincts. Had Della encountered the ducklings at another time, even an hour earlier or later, they might have become her prey rather than her adopted children. Remarkably, the ducklings quickly adapted to their new mother. They started imitating the kittens, spending time near Della and mimicking the habits typical of cats. However, over time, the ducklings began to exhibit their natural bird behaviors. They grew significantly faster than the kittens, but maintained a strong attachment to Della. Even as the ducklings grew up, they continued to follow her around the farm, still considering her their mother. This touching story demonstrates how strong maternal instincts can overcome natural barriers between species. Kindhearted Murka. But cats don't only raise ducklings. You'll see that now. At a mini zoo in Crimea, an amazing story quickly caught public attention. One day, concerned visitors brought 3 tiny orphaned squirrel pups to the zoo. These little furry creatures needed urgent help and care. The zoo staff faced a challenging task: how to save and care for the orphaned squirrel pups. At the same time, a cat named Murka, who had come to the zoo on her own and decided to stay, had recently given birth to kittens and displayed all the signs of a caring mother. Considering how to help the squirrel pups, the zoo staff made a bold decision to try placing them with Murka, hoping her maternal instincts would help the tiny creatures survive. Their guess was right. At first, Murka examined the unfamiliar kittens with curiosity and some confusion. They were clearly different from her own offspring, but despite this, she accepted them as her own. The cat began to groom and soon feed the squirrel pups. Thanks to this decisive step, the squirrel pups received the necessary nourishment and care, allowing them to survive. The squirrel pups quickly recovered and soon began to actively play with the kittens, bringing liveliness to the mini zoo. This story, full of kindness and unexpected care, couldn't go unnoticed. It spread quickly across the country, and Murka became a true star. In gratitude for her motherly feat, the cat was provided with comfortable living conditions, high-quality food, and the care she deserved for her act. Prickly friendship. Did you think that was all cats could surprise you with? Think again, I'm about to tell you more. One day, 8 orphaned hedgehogs who had lost their mother were brought to the Primorsky Zoo. These tiny creatures were in critical condition, and the zoo staff faced a serious problem. The babies refused to drink milk from a bottle, which threatened their lives. For 2 days, attempts were made to save the hedgehogs, but nothing worked, and it seemed their time was running out. At this moment, the zoo director suggested an unusual solution, trying to place the hedgehogs under the care of a cat named Musia. She had recently finished nursing her kittens, and perhaps her maternal instincts could save the babies. The decision was bold, but the desperate situation required unconventional approaches. To the zoo staff's surprise, Musia immediately understood what she needed to do. She lay on her side, relaxed, and allowed the hedgehogs to approach her. Sensing the warmth and smell of milk, the hedgehogs began to crawl towards the cat, and soon she started feeding them. Musia showed incredible care for her new little ones, visiting them during feeding times and even tolerating the discomfort of the hedgehog's quills. Although she had to endure these minor pricks, Musia treated the hedgehogs with great patience and responsibility. What was especially surprising was that Musia easily distinguished between her kittens and the adopted hedgehogs. On one day, when a television crew visited the zoo, they tried to introduce other hedgehogs to her. Musia flatly refused to accept the strangers, but as soon as her own hedgehogs were returned, she recognized them immediately and continued to care for them as before. This touching story quickly spread throughout the country, evoking admiration and wonder from people, and the cat Musia became a symbol of love and care. A bit of theory. Stories of animals adopting the young of other species can sometimes seem almost fairy tale-like. Think of Mowgli being raised by wolves in Kipling's famous story. While that tale is fictional, in real life, animals do occasionally take on the care of young from other species. But why does this happen? What drives animals to become foster parents? One possible answer relates to benefits, though not in a material sense. In the animal world, some species take care of the young of close relatives, which helps preserve the family's gene pool. For example, red squirrels might adopt an orphan from a neighboring nest if it's a close relative, but they limit themselves to one foster young to avoid harming their own offspring. A group of animals with strong social bonds might also care for the young of others, especially if they belong to the same species. Gorillas, for instance, raise orphans within their group, and bonobos might adopt a baby from another group. Domestic animals living in constant contact with humans and other animals are particularly prone to such behaviors. Zoos often utilize this phenomenon when cats or dogs take on the care of other young. They accept the babies as their own, caring for them and feeding them milk, even if they look entirely different. Finally, animals don't always distinguish between their own young and others. This is the basis for the cuckoo's trick of laying its eggs in the nests of other birds. In livestock management, the method of swapping offspring is also widely used. If a female gives birth to a weak or small litter, young from another mother might be introduced. Cats, dogs, rabbits, and birds handle this task well, ignoring differences in the appearance of the young. The remarkable gorilla. But it's not only sweet little cats that make great parents. Big gorillas have this quality too. Don't believe it? Then listen up. In the San Francisco Zoo lived a gorilla named Coco, who became a true celebrity. At 44 years old, she was famous worldwide for her unique skill, communicating with people using sign language. Coco was one of the few animals to master this method of communication. At the zoo, she worked with a special trainer, Francine Patterson, who helped the gorilla express her thoughts, emotions, and desires through gestures. Despite her fame and love for communication, Coco had one deeply rooted sadness. She had never had her own babies. In captivity, gorillas rarely give birth, and Coco's maternal instinct remained unfulfilled. She often expressed her desire to care for a baby by hugging herself and gesturing as if asking for a baby. Understanding her longing, zoo staff occasionally brought her toys resembling babies to somewhat soothe her maternal feelings. On Coco's 44th birthday, her trainer Francine decided to give her a special gift: 5 tiny kittens. The gorilla's reaction was incredibly touching. Coco immediately accepted the kittens with tenderness and love, stroking their soft fur with her fingertips. Her actions were remarkably gentle as she carefully brought the kittens to her face to examine them better and even placed them on her head, expressing her affection and care. The kittens instantly won Coco's heart, and the zoo staff decided to keep 2 gray kittens for her to become part of her life. These kittens filled the emptiness in her heart, and the gorilla accepted them as her own offspring. Soon, the kittens became the center of her attention and care, bringing her joy and purpose. In one touching video taken by the zoo staff, you can see Coco carefully playing with the kittens, aware of their fragility. She gently hugged them, trying not to hurt them, and even attempted to teach them how to play with toys. In one episode, Coco treated her fluffy friends to a toy pie, offering them a bite just as she did herself. The video ends with a moment when Coco tried to take the kittens into her enclosure. One of the kittens climbed onto her back and she got on all fours, intending to carry it away. However, the zoo staff, knowing Coco likely couldn't raise the kittens on her own, gently removed the baby from the gorilla's back before she could retreat into the enclosure. Coco's story and her kittens touched many hearts around the world, showing that maternal instincts know no species boundaries and that even such different creatures can find comfort and support in each other. Golden leopards. And finally, one of the most touching stories. Be sure to listen to it until the end. At the beginning of October, a pair of African leopards, Vlad and Elena, gave birth to 2 tiny cubs. However, the joy of their birth was overshadowed by the fact that the mother, Elena, had poorly developed maternal instincts. Last time, this led to a tragedy, and the newborns could not be saved. To prevent a repeat of the situation, the zoo staff decided to take the cubs into their care. Fortunately, from the moment the cubs opened their eyes, they accepted humans as their family, so separation from their mother didn't cause them stress. However, one of the cubs was particularly weak and was found to have a heart defect. The zoo staff realized that the cub needed special conditions and transferred it to the care of a Maine Coon breeder who took on its nursing. She noted that the tiny leopard needed complete rest and regular feeding with small portions every hour and a half. Despite the challenges, there was some progress, and while a full recovery is not yet in sight, staff remain hopeful. The second cub stayed in a specially heated tent, where zoo staff closely monitored its condition. The cub had not yet been named, but it might be called Mila, as it charmed everyone with its sweetness. Despite her tiny size, Mila presented some challenges. She categorically refused to drink milk from a bottle. The staff tried many options, from long and short nipples to rubber and silicone, but none worked. Then a decision was made to turn to a golden retrieve, named Tessie, who had recently become a mother. Tessie gladly accepted the tiny leopard as her pup and began feeding her. Mila quickly adapted to her new mother, but before each feeding, she meticulously chose a comfortable position, crawling on Tessie and trying to find the most comfortable spot. The retriever will feed the leopard cub until she is about a month and a half old. after which solid food will be introduced. The zoo staff notes that despite all the difficulties, caring for the animals brings them joy. According to Elena Asnovina, the staff's home now resembles a field hospital. There are diapers everywhere, furniture is chewed up, and shoes have to be kept out of reach. However, all these inconveniences have become routine, and they continue to care for their charges with pleasure. Wonderful staff and equally wonderful pets. Of course, all these stories are very inspiring, but before taking on the responsibility of raising someone, you need to be sure of your future. And if you're having issues with that, I know what to suggest. We're looking for scriptwriters, narrators, editors, and creative producers for our videos. Interested? Then follow the link in the description and submit your application. Thanks for watching.